Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Deb Oliver, and I have the pleasure of being your host for this exciting and very timely webinar. Today, we are here with Stephen Ashworth, President and CEO of IIBA, and Katie Bola and Andrea Baldwin, Associate Principal and Principal at KPMG. Stephen, Katie, and Andrea will walk us through the latest research that has just been completed. Before we begin, I would like to mention that if you do have any questions about the research, please submit them in the question box on your screen or tweet them to hashtag IIBA Research, and I know Stephen and Katie and Andrea will be more than pleased to answer them. So with that, I will turn the webinar over to Stephen.
Thank you very much, Deb. It's my pleasure to be with you here today. I'm joining you from the BBC conference in Las Vegas, the official conference of IIBA, which is taking place with over 1,400 of our BA community joining us here for a week of insights, learning, and connections. Today, we are unveiling for the first time the results of a research study that KPMG conducted on our behalf. Business analysis is an important crossroad, and IIBA commissioned this research and impact study to reflect the essential role of the business analysts. So why do we need to do this now? Within the current marketplace, IIBA recognized that there were transformative opportunities to be explored and developed that would greatly benefit the business analysis profession. Business analysis enables change and plays an essential role in today's business environment by capturing value, solutions, and helping ensure successful business outcomes. Business analysis helps to make better decisions. Business analysis helps to identify and solve the right problems. We might instinctively know that, but how do we show the rest of the business community, and more importantly, how do we share that with them? We can go to the next slide, please. IIBA recognized that this was an important opportunity to showcase the value of business analysis to organizations and increase our reach and drive awareness of the expanded role of business analysis within the business ecosystem. Through our ongoing global tours, visits, and our Thought Leadership Incubator forums, we are continuing to learn about new opportunities and challenges emerging in cities around the world. And through our now 10-strong strategic collaborations and different types of BA roles in all industries and complementary disciplines. We continue to hear great things and insights and feedback through these face-to-face meetings. And we recognize the need for IIBA to take our level of engagement one step further through a market research study to validate what we are hearing in the global marketplace from our members, from our corporate members, strategic alliances, and communities. This research examined how business analysis is used to deliver value in organizations and the role and reach of business analysis in organizations. And to hear more about the research, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Katie Bola to review the very, very exciting results. Katie.
Katie, it looks like you're muted right now. Katie, I believe you're self-muted.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Katie.
Great. Well, I'll start again. Thank you, Stephen, very much. Both my colleague and myself are quite excited to be here today to share some of the recent findings from that global research study on business analysis. So, you're hearing from Katie Bola right now. I am an associate principal within the management consulting group at KPMG and part of our Global Center of Excellence on customer strategy and customer experience. And so we were quite excited to be working with the IIBA on this transformative and foundational research study. I'm joined by my colleague, Andrea Baldwin.
Hi, it's Andrea here. And so I've worked with lots of business analysts and in business analysis across our time, so it's been both rewarding to do the research, but also helpful probably to bring that industry perspective. So I look forward to answering questions as they come up.
Great. So what do we want to talk about today? We've got three big themes that we want to cover. One is that we want to paint a picture of the future for our organizations across the globe and across industries, and how there are some macro trends that are disrupting the global business atmosphere. We want to then talk about and describe the evolving role of business analysis and what the skill sets of the future will be to help navigate this new business reality, and to discuss then how best to position business analysis for success, and as Stephen mentioned, how to expand the role and reach of business analysis within organizations. Before we get started, I'll give you some technical details on the study itself. We combined three different sources of research. The first was a survey that was sent out to practitioners. We got over 3,000 responses. This was then combined with business leader perspectives through two different channels. We had telephone interviews with at least 100 business leaders, again, across industries and countries. And this was combined with some additional research that KPMG had conducted with a CEO community, again, across the globe and across industries with over 12,000 responses. So what you're going to see today is an aggregation of the results of these perspectives and what it means to the community. So what are these macro trends that are impacting business and impacting the CEOs and keeping them up at night? Based on both the research that we conducted for the IIBA as well as our own experience working with these CEOs, we know that it is a time of change. It is a time for transformation. 72% of CEOs believe that the next 3 years will be more transformative to their industry and business than the last 50 years combined. However, only 60% of global CEOs believe that it's going to happen to their business. And what I mean by that is they don't believe that they're going to be operating or running a business that is very different than what it is today. But this math doesn't add up. And so we know that businesses need to transform or risk failure. And this need for transformation and change is fueled by a number of market forces: technology and data, an evolving customer base that is more sophisticated, and broad industry disruption. And so let's go through each one of those. Technology advancements and access to data. You probably have heard and might be experienced with advancements in virtual reality, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, robotics, and it's changing the way business is conducted and the capabilities that businesses are required. And the access to data and the computing power is now opening new possibilities for business intelligence and insights. When we start looking at customers, the way that customers are more connected and they have more choice than they have ever had before. And the expectations of companies and the organizations that they interact with is growing and evolving. Over the next 3 to 4 years, millennials will surpass baby boomers for the first time as the most influential and biggest spenders. And if we think about millennials, you'll see a lot in the press around millennials now have an attention span of 8 seconds, which is 1 second less than a goldfish. So you can imagine the complexity and the challenge that these organizations and businesses have for getting, again, the attention, the loyalty of these individuals. And the consumers are now going to be expecting more experiential interactions, and they have different spending habits. So again, organizations are trying to figure out how to connect with and build trust with this next generation of more sophisticated and evolving customers. The last thing is industry disruption, and what a lot of CEOs characterize as a blurring of the lines between industries. And 65%, when we surveyed the CEOs, are concerned that new entrants are disrupting business models, but only half, and in fact, sorry, more than half, believe that their company is not disrupting their industry model enough. So again, a lot of challenges that the CEOs are facing, and what you'll hear too is an underlying theme of, I'm not quite sure what to do about it. So it's no surprise that when we survey business leaders, that their top concerns include customer loyalty, how do we engage and connect and keep new customers as well as our existing customers, having enough time to think strategically and innovatively about how to address some of these disruptive macro trends and what that means to their business and how to evolve. And then the third thing is, how do we remain relevant? Our products and services, are they going to still matter to consumers in the market 3 years from now? Because we know that the pace of change is accelerating. So the majority of the CEOs recognize that there's an important need for a culture of innovation, to embrace a stronger client focus, to respond quickly to technology changes and opportunities, and to invest in increasing data and analysis capabilities, new product development, and ways to better manage and measure customer engagement. But the CEOs also recognize that they are now handling issues that they have never grappled with before. So they are also changing the expectations and the value that they are seeking from their business analysis capabilities internally. These business leaders are looking for help to navigate this complex business world, and so they expect timely insights from business analysis resources, as well as help in the decision-making process. When we ask the business leaders to provide 3 words that describe business analysis, the most frequently cited combination of words was smart, quick, and improved decision-making. So what you'll see on this page is you'll see some of the traditional perceptions around the value of business analysis, efficiency improvements, both in terms of the use and the time of resources, as well as increasing project rates. But business analysis is also now expected to help organizations with their growth agendas, identifying and prioritizing the new opportunities, as well as providing that foundation and the insights to better understand, acquire, and retain their customers. What this means is that the value that the business leaders are seeking from the discipline of business analysis is affecting now the role of business analysis professionals, and it's informing a shift from maybe what the leaders and the community have traditionally characterized as more task-based analysis to more value-driven analysis. And so again, when we ask business leaders and practitioners around the perception of the discipline and the role, the themes you see on the left side of the slide emerge, that it's task-centric, that professionals are often informed of what they should analyze and how to structure the output, that it happens siloed, that perhaps it's in certain areas of the business and not necessarily a foundational skill set that is found across the organization, that it is more data-focused, focused on calculations over interpretations, and that whether they are put in this box or not, that they tend to more be project managers and translators of the strategy, not necessarily involved in setting or reevaluating the strategic agenda. So what we're hearing now, though, again, from both the practitioners and the business leaders, is that business analysis confined to just certain departments like IT and operations or finance, and narrowly leveraged for project management, is foundational but no longer sufficient. And so what we see is that leaders are looking for the more strategic, enterprise-level insights that add the value to organizations and the foundation for a differentiated value proposition and the competition and the means to win in this more complex business environment. And what we see then on the right-hand side is what that means is that there's an expectation that business analysis needs to transcend departments and functional groups. It needs to be found as a base capability throughout the organization. That there needs to be conversion of data into insights from both within the organization as well as drawing from outside data sets and information. It needs to influence the way that leaders think about the structuring and the deploying of their resources, and to help generally shift capabilities of the colleagues and the business to become more strategy focused. So when we talk about the evolution of the skill sets, what are we hearing again from the business analysis community and from business leaders across the globe? Again, we're seeing that the traditional view of requirements gathering and elicitation and documentation are now foundational, and that in anticipation of growing presence of things like automated data collection, decision making, CEOs and practitioners alike are now indicating that this skill set, this foundational skill set, needs to be augmented with skills related to strategic thinking and analysis, leadership, creativity, and innovative thinking. However, while there's alignment there on sort of the skill sets that will lead to better business outcomes and more value within organizations, there is right now a bit of a misalignment between where practitioners and business leaders feel that business analysis skills reside within the organization. Again, on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see practitioners' points of view on where the capabilities reside, compared to on the right-hand side of the screen where business leaders believe that these skill sets reside. And so practitioners believe that the vast majority are housed within IT and operations, while you'll see that business leaders view it as a capability set that is dispersed across functional levels, functional groups and levels, including the C-suite and the strategy groups. Part of this misalignment may be due to, again, gaps in awareness or perceptions of the skill sets, but the good news here is that the business leaders, again, they view it as something that is a capability set that is broadly applicable across the organization. And I would say that this is a positive indication to the business community as a whole, because it leads to exciting career opportunities and to impact, because again, you see it at all levels within the organization and across functional groups. So as we talk about shifting capabilities and the desire and the expectation to have even more value from business analysis within organizations, what are some of the models that business leaders and these organizations are exploring to help develop the capability set within the organization? And based on the study coupled with some external research and case studies that we've done, there's two primary models that have emerged on how to better ingrain and leverage the business analysis skill set. One is around generally lifting the broad, both through training and access, the capability level of the organization. And this is now they're looking at embedding a disciplined, analytical, and data-driven approach to all business decisions. So really model one is how do we take the whole business, lift the full capability set, and embed some of the principles and skill sets of business analysis. The second model that we see, and it emerges more in larger, more sophisticated companies or perhaps a little bit more advanced on the innovation curve, is a development and a deployment of specialized business analysis teams within the organization. And these are individuals that are experts and provide advanced capabilities in certain areas that then can be deployed across the organization to assist with decision making, with analytics, and with certain projects. So as we move from, what are the two models of helping to develop the capabilities internally within organizations, what is the role that the business analysis community can take in expanding the reach and the role of business analysis? And what we heard, again, from both practitioners and business leaders alike is that leadership awareness is critical. The community, the practitioners need to articulate the value proposition to leaders, both in terms of what are the outcomes that the skill set and these practitioners provide internally to the organization, as well as what are some of the successful external outcomes, whether that's brand perception, improved customer retention and experience, etc. They need to communicate this value to leaders to ensure that that business analysts can secure access to opportunities and the support that they need to deliver to its full potential and to their full potential. And to gain that awareness, and again, it's likely a bit of an awareness and maybe a bit of a perception gap, there needs to be an understanding of where the capabilities are housed within the organization, and that leaders need to start to look at how they can best take advantage of and leverage the capabilities that exist within the organization. So I'll conclude with some key takeaways and a synthesis of the presentation today. Overall, we talked about macro trends that are leading to transformative change for organizations that will need to react in order to stay relevant and competitive. Again, this is something that is impacting across the globe and industries, that therefore CEOs are concerned with customer loyalty, with the relevancy of their products and services, and their ability and their time to think strategically on how to actually best prepare for this wave of change. And so therefore business leaders' expectations of business analysis are shifting. They're looking for business analysis and business analysts to help with the efficiency of their projects, but also to better understand those customers and to prioritize the strategic opportunities and be involved in setting the strategic agenda. The business analysis community can best deliver the value by augmenting their foundational skills with driving broader business analysis, converting that to insights, by taking a creative and innovative approach to the work and the problem solving, as well as providing and driving the strategic insight. And for the community itself and for the practitioners themselves, to best position for success, there needs to be a bridge of the awareness and perception gaps between practitioners and business leaders across departments within organizations to successfully expand the role and the reach of business analysis. So Stephen, that concludes the synopsis of the data and the findings from the research. I'll turn it back to you to talk about what's next.
Thank you very much, Katie. The results of this survey have provided market and industry understandings, and these impactful and actionable insights will allow IIBA to make better decisions and promote the growth of business analysis globally. So what will this mean to your organization, and what will it mean to your role? IIBA sees this as a transformative opportunity for the business analysis community and business leaders also to work closer together, and it will confirm the opportunities for us to accelerate our efforts on this journey in a thoughtful and very deliberate way. This is a good news story. Our 3-year strategic plan goals and activities have positioned IIB well for this pivot point. The standards for business analysis will continue to evolve to support the knowledge within the BA profession and the future expectations. We can go on to the next slide. That's good. This creates a great opportunity for IIBA to focus on expanding its level of leadership support, engagement, and resources to support professionals working in business analysis role to develop their skills, further their career, and support their organization in developing better business outcomes. This research provides a foundation for fact-based engagement and conversations on the value of business analysis, and ultimately will help us raise the recognition of the valuable role business analysis plays. So as we move forward, IIBA will utilize this research with you and have those discussions take place to showcase how business analysis is creating better business outcomes and how we can provide even more value and have those discussions and stories together. And we will use this research to capture new market opportunities and develop new IP to drive our community to an even stronger place for the benefit of practitioners and organizations around the world. It is important to realize the potential of business analysis to secure leadership buy-in. This will remain the crucial factor to gaining awareness of BA skill sets. Together, IIBA and our members will share this insight as we stand united to elevate the global community and help ensure business analysis professionals have a seat and voice at the table. Although the research is now in our hands, we're just starting on the journey to dive deeper into the research and take tangible actions to lead our community. This compelling report is the beginning of the dialogue and additional research that will continue to evolve. There will be new opportunities to push forward, to shape our future, and influence organizations to deliver better business outcomes. Thank you. And Deb, I will now turn this over to you, and I know we have many questions, which we're all excited about.
You're right, Stephen. Thank you. The first question that I have is actually for you, Stephen. And you talked a little bit about plans in the future that IIBA has for these insights. Can you elaborate a little more on what you see would be a priority for IIBA with these insights?
So insights regarding to the research?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a number of things that I think come out of this report. Many of you who are on the phone will, probably nodding your head saying, I knew all of this information and I knew it to be true. And that's important. That should give you a sense of fulfillment too, because it allows you to have a third-party voice through KPMG's research methodologies to be able to validate that. So that's a positive. What will also be important is to now have a platform to continue the dialogue. You may have known this, and many of you have been practicing for many years, now have an opportunity to continue that dialogue. And it's a reinforcement and a healthy check-in for business analysis as a whole in the community, to work with corporate and organizations to be able to say, there's not only just a bright future, there's many opportunities as we move forward. And I think this is where later on perhaps we can also talk about an alignment with our competency and multi-level certification model.
Thank you, Stephen. Katie, we have a question about one of the slides that you presented, and it's the one about moving from task-driven analysis to value-driven analysis. Can you actually elaborate on what you mean by the value propositions in the context of all of this change?
Sure. So when we talk about the value proposition, we're often referencing how can a business analysis practitioner or the community as a whole best articulate the value that they can bring to organizations and to all areas of the business. And so what we're seeing is that the perceptions, perhaps traditionally or historically, have been more around the task-driven analysis. And now there is an ask for and a push from the community to move to more of the value-driven analysis. And so it's things like turning calculations and data and analytics into insights, and what does that mean from a strategy. It's taking a siloed or a bunch of individuals working toward an answer independently to how do we best collaborate across departments, across levels to drive to answers. So when we refer to the value proposition, it's more around a clear articulation of the benefits and the capabilities that business analysts and the business analysis discipline can bring to organizations and how that links to better strategic decision making.
Thank you, Katie. When you were presenting the results, Katie, you talked about strategic thinking and for a business analysis practitioner to really take their insights to the enterprise level. Stephen, can I ask you, what is IIBA planning on doing to help business analysts and analysis practitioners develop leadership skills?
So I love this question. The reason I love it is whoever sent it in, you're already thinking about that forward opportunity. And you're absolutely right. When we see leadership skills being identified as a great opportunity and that senior decision makers and CEOs are entering into a much more complex world, this is your window of opportunity. So helping to develop those leadership skills will be a bridge to be able to access to that corporate environment to get a better alignment. And then it will endorse the skill sets that BA brings to the table. And what we've just done then is elevate it to the next level because that awareness is not there yet. And that's where we want to leverage that. So this, whoever asked that question, kudos to you, because it really shows that, yes, this is a work and development we will need to tease out, and really will be engagement with you as well as corporate, getting them to comment on what do they think is needed, which allows us to bridge it and elevate the engagement model.
Great, thank you very much. Katie, the next question is for you. During that whole research process and going through the results, did you get a sense on industries where business analysis practitioners' skill sets are most valued?
So it's interesting that that question was answered. I'll be transparent and say that going into the research, we had some hypotheses on that there might be a disproportionate value of business analysis found in certain industries. And what we were happy to see is that the value was seen across all industries. So we had a mix of IT, industrial, we had consumer markets and retail, we had telecommunications. So again, we had a good representation of across industries, and I would say that there was alignment, I should say, there was alignment across industries that there is a need for and that there is value provided by business analysis.
Great. Thank you very much. Another question for you, Katie. On slide, I believe it was 15, you talked about factors to help the expansion of the business analysis role. And one of the items that you provided there was the thought about business analysis practitioners demonstrating success in terms of their contribution in business analysis. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by demonstrating that success? What kind of metrics are those leaders looking for?
So again, I think that there's the traditional and the foundational metrics and value that is being looked for. So that is, this project was on time and on budget, so similar kind of efficiency metrics. But then they're also looking for ones that are a little bit more harder to quantify, and it's just a general, are we more advanced in our insights and our intelligence around our market and our consumers and our competition? And are we taking more of a analytically driven and data-driven approach to the decision making, both at the high-level strategic as well as at the business unit level? So I think that when we talk about how we can demonstrate, it's both by being metrics-driven and coming up with a collection of the right metrics, and I would suggest that we expand beyond the on-time, on-budget kind of metrics base into a little bit more of, we've improved customer satisfaction, whether that's internal departments or external departments, and clearly articulate, again, beyond just metrics, what the contribution that business analysis provided to the strategic direction.
Thank you, Katie. Stephen, I have a question for you. So there's been a lot of information that's been presented here today. Can you talk a little bit about what we need to do to go forward to activate these results with the community?
Yes, and that again is the research itself is only part of the equation, part of the journey, and part of the opportunity. The greater opportunity is now to take this research and use it as that, as I said earlier, platform for discussions and dialogues. There will be some definite data that we will be able to cut, analyze, and package, and as well as support, and we will tease that out, and that's one sort of segment of the opportunity here. So there's additional analysis that needs to take place within the data that's being presented. There's also the dialogue opportunities with members, with chapters, with industry, with organizations, etc., to share this data and to get that response back. What does it mean to those individuals? You know, some will say that they knew it. Others will say, I'm surprised by something. And others will say, so what are we going to do about the actionable opportunity here, such as the previous question about leadership. So that's another opportunity. And then I think another component to this is, what else weren't we able to cover and capture? And if it helps raise the awareness and the voice to a higher level where someone else said, well, this is fine, but we really need to be exploring more or focusing in on this or that? Or what is the developmental opportunity with that senior decision maker, that CEO, he or she, in terms of bridging that gap? That's another part of this, and I think all organizations, all professions go through a healthy check-in, and it's sort of doing that healthy self-analysis to validate what you're doing, that you're on that right trajectory. And you not only believe it is so, you've actually validated it is so. So there's some chunks, Debbie: the analysis itself in the report, the dialogues that can continue, and the future research that needs to take place based on those dialogues.
Thank you, Stephen. So you mentioned, Stephen, future research. We have a question that wants to know about this study being, is it a one-time study, or is there the ability to go back year over year to find out if there's been progress in terms of the metrics that have been outlined in the research? What are your plans for that?
Well, I will comment, and then probably Andrea and Katie will also want to comment, because they're involved with many different types of studies, and I think that's something to recognize as well. You know, there can be longitudinal studies that will allow us to look at trends and global trends and upticks in markets and downticks as well and disruptions. And that can be a pure and applied type of research. The longitudinal studies will also help in that respect, that if there's something that we want to track now and 5 years into the future, it allows us to sort of go back and revisit this to say, this is what we've been tracking and this is what we've found to be true. I think the other thing about research, that any good research project should end up spawning new ideas and opportunities for future research. It should provoke and cause questions to be going off in someone's head, and it should allow us to take that and then see how we can distill it down to some key areas of future research. So I always see research as the beginning of an opportunity and dialogues, not a one-time, we'll put it on the shelf. And like most things in life, there's a shelf life, and I'm not going to put a time cap on it, but that's important to recognize. What is true today can change quite radically tomorrow. The important part of doing research like this is stepping into this space, ensuring that you've done your validation, to be able to stand up and have that exposure to industry and the practitioners out there to say, this is what the research has said and what you have said, and then do more check-ins. So I see it as the beginning of an opportunity in the research space, and to also, it helps to inform our own educational and research portfolios, as well as our certifications and competency model.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have anything to add, Katie?
Sure, it's Andrea. I'll add in just to say that a lot of times, even though organizations have some hypotheses or kind of common assumptions as they start this, what a research study does, and particularly kind of with the response rates and kind of the breadth of this study, allows you to really have that substantiated fact base that allows you to start to make decisions and strategic kind of direction. So often it is the first step, and so I see it as the first step to be able to help IBA to be able to think of what it wants to do next, but also to inspire and to kind of lead to kind of different questions that the membership will ask to be able to help push that thinking forward. So we're seeing a lot of change right now in the industry and a lot of opportunity for people that have a traditional business analyst background, and I think that this really helps to be able to open up those opportunities, and it forces some choices and some decisions that will be needed to be made about where you focus effort and kind of where you want to grow the profession.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yes, Andrea or Katie, one of the things that I was encouraged by, and I know you were too, and I thought maybe you should share that with the community, is the response rate and the accuracy of the study.
Yeah, so we were quite delighted. Again, I think that this is Katie speaking. I mentioned at the beginning that we had over 3,000 responses from practitioners, which is about a 15% response rate, and industry norms would be close to 10 to 15%. And overall, across all the different tools that we used, we do have a 95% confidence at an interval of about plus or minus 2%. So what that means is that 95% of the time, plus or minus 2%, there will be that these results would occur, and that is of a very high degree of statistical significance and relevancy. So it's, again, as Andrea mentioned, it's a credible and broad fact base to help stimulate and advance conversations about the path for the profession and the discipline.
Thank you for adding that. I do have one more question for you, Katie, Andrea, and it is about the slide where you're talking about factors that prevent expansion of the role and reach. So in the slide, it was leadership awareness, lack of sufficient internal business analysis resources, and the inability to effectively identify and recruit business analysis talent. In the work that you've done in the past and for other professions, have you found something similar?
Yeah, I would say it's, Andrea, for anything that's an emerging skill set, we see it particularly. So if I just think of, you know, people would perhaps jump to kind of a more traditional definition if they thought of business analysts and were thinking about the role that they were playing. I think that the opportunity is to be able to really control a bit that story that you want to be told, and to anticipate the opportunities that there are, to be able to use the skills that are traditionally, as a business analyst, to be able to really provide a level of rigor, a level of analysis, you know, a level of information and insight and program management that allows you to be able to help the organization. So if I just think kind of a little bit of that, leadership awareness in the study, we see that when senior leaders are asked about where there is opportunity for business analysis or business analysts to play, they have a broader set of ideas than perhaps we traditionally do as a member base. So being able to think proactively about where that skill set can play in the organization. I think lack of sufficient internal business analysis resources is an opportunity where, as Katie was describing, there's two things. They're going to need to staff up the entire kind of resource base with those skill sets, and they're going to need some specialized groups that dig deeper in. So from a career potential and from being able to kind of imagine the influence that business analysis would have in organizations moving forward, I think that's a tremendous opportunity. And then the inability to effectively identify and recruit business analysis talent, twofold. I just think that it's too big a magnitude of change to go in and turn over your whole workforce. There's a need that's going to be embedded in many, many roles to be able to take kind of a more rigorous approach. And then it also is a skill set that, from my perspective, is increasingly kind of difficult to find, right? So as we're recruiting, as my clients are recruiting, it's hard to find people that have kind of demonstrated skills in this area and great potential and need for the organization. So.
Thank you for adding that. Stephen, I have a question for you. Considering some of the findings within the research, how much of change do you foresee happening to IIBA and the BA community in the short term?
It's a very interesting question. First of all, we have to define short term. You know, if we're talking about tomorrow, what does this change? I think there is actually a fundamental change short term. You now actually have a tool that's validated and fact-based. That's a short-term change that 24 hours ago you didn't have in your inventory, the arsenal of discussion that you can bring to the table. And it may sound fundamental, but it allows you to not only have that confidence, but it's reassurance about a profession that continues to evolve in a very meaningful and deliberate way. So that, in the short term, I would say is the immediate opportunity. I also think that we don't want to miss the journey because education is a process. Follows a continuum, and overnight, you know, senior decision makers won't all of a sudden understand those skill sets. So building in that collaborative engagement model, whatever it needs to look like, however it needs to transform itself, however it appears in decision making, you know, whether it be boardrooms, projects, any of those initiatives that BA practitioners engage in, allows you to have that as a filter now as well. So there's, in the sort of longer term, there's going to be building that engagement model and saying, what are the activation points? What are the points of intersections that allow me, you know, the permission to have our voice as we move forward? I think the other important thing that in the short term, if I stay in that space, because I think people often do connect, and we heard what was the attention span, you know, and how narrow that is. Demand is also a very short-term lens that you can put on this, because there are other industries that people are employed in that are diminishing in demand, and this is not one of them. So this is a great news story, also attaching to the corporate decision makers who are going to need to understand how they can have a solution be brought to them. Another short term I'm going to suggest is look at our multi-level certification now. Look how the competency model allows us to shore up any skills that you might have and get those specialties, so that allows you to position yourself in a strategic way in front of the decision makers within your own organizations. Understand that that deficit of leadership awareness is an opportunity in the short term to capitalize on, to bring forward, and to leverage in a very, very positive way. In the short term, I think there's also BA brand awareness that is coming your way, and we need your voice at the table as well, and engagement, and some very, very progressive opportunities that not just with IIBA International, but on a local level as well. And we need to hold these sort of this inventory of opportunities for that short term. And I can't wait to get to the medium and long term, because there's some great sustainable opportunities there too. But I do know that often people want to know, what does it mean that's different today than it was yesterday? And I hope that that helps identify some of those immediate short-term opportunities.
Thank you very much. We're getting to the end of the webinar in terms of time, but I just want to ask one more question. And Katie, this question is for you. Did you find that employers recognize that the BA role was identified by other names besides business analyst?
I would say yes, and I think that the data points that prove that is that when you ask the business leaders on where the skill sets are housed, they see it at the C-suite level all the way down and throughout and across departments. So I think by default, because that business analyst title doesn't necessarily is not necessarily found in all those areas, that yes, the business leaders are thinking about it more broadly than just a title or a role.
That's great. Thank you very much. We are going to close the webinar. Katie, Andrea, thank you for sharing the results of the study with us and providing great explanations in terms of what we need to think about when we're going through the research report. Thank you, Stephen, for helping us understand what we'll be doing with those results to help grow our community. So with that, I'm going to end by saying please do visit iiba.org to take a closer look at our report and continue the conversation. If you have any other questions, please send them or tweet them to #IIBAResearch. And Stephen, Katie, Andrea would be happy to answer those questions. So with that, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.